Hey everyone, this video is about using CalcPlot3D and specifically the surface of revolution feature to look at revolving a region around an axis. And usually this is the first screen you'll see when you go to the CalcPlot3D website. And I would mention, make sure you're going to this libretext.org site. There's another site that was common before 2020 that you can sometimes get to through Google, and it won't have this feature on it. So make sure you're using the c3d.libretext.org website. So go ahead and just click this X to delete this function. We're not going to need this present for what we're doing. So that'll clear the graph out. And then over here on Add to Graph, click the Select and scroll all the way down to this surface of revolution. And you're going to click that surface of revolution and it'll bring up this graph over here on the left side and several things below it. So we'll go through a lot of those features. The first thing is, this is your region that you're graphing right here. And if you want to add something else, you can hit this Add to Graph and select, and usually you'll just want to do like a function, but this will allow you to add a lot of stuff. Usually what we'll do is we're just going to change, rather than adding anything, we're just going to change this top and bottom function that we want to rotate. So it already has these in here, square root of x and x squared. If you want to put something else in, you can, like maybe if I wanted to do the natural log of x instead, I could put that in, just hit enter, and that would change it. So now I'm going between natural log of x and x squared. Now notice natural log of x is not on top, so I might want to change positions for those. For this one, I'm just going to go back to the square root of x, but those are some things you can do if you want to change what functions you're rotating on there. You can also change where you're at, so our x is just between 0 and 1, so that would be the shaded region right in there. If I wanted to go over a different region, I could change those bounds right there. This one just x0 to 1. The axis of revolution, right now it's on the x-axis where y is 0. You can also change that, so if I wanted y equals 1 and then hit enter, that you'll see this dotted line up here would change where I'm going to revolve around. So that is also something that you can change. I'll put it back on y equals 0. And if I go ahead and slide this bar, rotate region, notice what that does. It takes that region that's over there and starts rotating it around this axis of revolution, whatever you have specified. And you can turn the graph. You just want to click and hold while you drag it around. It'll rotate that. So right now I just have it kind of half rotated, so you can get a better cross-sectional view there of this region getting rotated around that axis. So this will give you kind of an idea of what you're looking at in terms of actual region. If you rotate it and then let go of your mouse, sometimes it'll kind of keep rotating around. It's kind of up to you how you want to look at it, but I'm gonna stop it from spinning. Just click it again to keep it from spinning. If you want to keep rotating your region, it'll rotate all the way around, and then you can see the full rotated object that's around there. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get it back to where it was, but usually you're just looking for this x over here on the right, y going up, and then z coming at you, because we're used to dealing with stuff in the xy plane. So that's how we'll view it. A lot of other contexts you might want z pointing up. You'll see that when you get to Calc 3, but for what we're doing, we'll just stick with this x on the right, y up as usual, and then z coming out of the screen toward you. You can also click these check boxes and it'll give you a few more options. So if you click show representative rectangle, then this will draw a rectangle over here, and you can slide it to change where that rectangle is. So I can go back and forth to look at, say, any particular rectangle that I might draw in there. I can revolve just that rectangle around, and this will be helpful if you're having trouble viewing either discs, washers, shells, any of those methods. If you're having trouble distinguishing which method it might be, then this can be kind of a useful feature. Take that rectangle, rotate it around the axis, see what it looks like, and it could be a disc method, a washer method, or a shell method, and we'll talk about those in another video. So this is just kind of getting used to visualizing it with this software. If you want to show, say, all the shells, maybe if I use 4 shells, four rectangles, and just rotate those would give me kind of an approximation. With calculus, the more pieces you use, the better your approximation is, and you kind of take a limit. But if you wanted to see, say, with just 5 rectangles, what that would look like, you can also revolve. So say revolve washers / shells, and it'll revolve just those rather than the region. So you'll get kind of this chunky block type region that's over here. And of course you can increase that and then rotate it again. That's kind of up to you. You want to use those. The other thing that you can do right here at the bottom is change from a y is f of x to x is f of y. And I'm going to go ahead and change that. So this will change into these type of regions. X equals something in terms of y. So right now it has 1/2 y squared and negative square root of 1 minus y squared. So kind of this half circle and this parabola that's right there. And again, you can specify the region. This one's just going -1 to 1 in the y's, so there to there. And you can also rotate that one. This one's going to look weird because it's crossing this axis. So normally you don't rotate around an axis that's going through your region. Let me go ahead and change that. So let's do y equals 1. So this will be my region right there, and then I can rotate around that and just see what that's going to look like. So that would give me this surface right here, which is what you get when I rotate that shape around that axis. Now if I change the axis, change the shape, I'll get something different, but again, this is just to give you kind of a nice visualization of what's going on there. A couple other things. So like before, you can change what x is in terms of its definition. So if you want to change that, you can change the axis, you can rotate the region. You can also change a representative rectangle. Notice this time the rectangles are going horizontal. So that's what this software does when you have x equals, is it runs things with the little dy piece, because everything's going to be in terms of y. So you don't really get a chance to switch what the rectangle would look like, but that is usually something that we'll do anyway when we're doing our calculations. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in some of the section videos. But if you want to see just say one particular rectangle that gets rotated, again, I can just revolve that one rectangle and it'll go around. So this one's going to be a shell rather than a washer. So we'll talk about all that as we go through some of the content videos, but this will give you kind of a good idea of what's going on with those. I think that's it. If you got any more questions on the software, let me know. One more thing before we go is I'll mention the scale. If for some reason your region doesn't fit between this -2 to 2 sort of region, you can just change it here by clicking this display format icon and then changing the format axes with your X min, X max, Y min, Y max. You can change that say -5 to 5 or -10 to 10, whatever you need on those guys. The clip is where it will cut off your surface, so you don't have to show the axes all the way to the clip point, but if it goes beyond this clip point, it'll just clip it off and only show up to that point. So if I wanted to change, say for axis, the X from -5 to 5, hit enter on that, and then it'll stretch out that X-axis. Now you don't want to use something too far out or you won't really be able to see your surface all that well, so it's kind of a fine-tuning as to what's going to look the best. I'll just change it back to that, just hit enter again. After you change a field, and it'll reset the view. So that is the surface of revolution or volumes of revolution feature in CalcPlot3D. One last thing I thought of, if we rotate our region, there's a couple icons here at the top that might help with some of the views of these guys. If you don't like seeing all the edges, you can click this E and it'll take the edges on or off. If you don't like seeing the faces, then you can click that. It'll take the faces on or off and just do the wireframe. That one can get a little bit weird depending on the angle, so I would do limited use of that one. Another thing that you can do though is if I put the faces back on, I can do transparency, and it'll make it semi-transparent. And if you unclick the edges, sometimes that'll give you kind of a nice view of here's my region inside, there's my rectangle, and the whole shape, how it sits within that shape. So those are just some different views that you can use from these guys, depending on how you want it to look. Change the angle, rotate it, different things like that. So if you want to play with those, you can also play with those as well. All right, I think that'll do it this time.